Good morning, good evening, and wherever the sun may find you. My name is Walt, and this is Coffee and Concepts on Keystroke Medium. I'm going to do something I didn't know I was going to be able to do today, and I'm a little nervous. We're talking about cold iced coffee. I live in the northeast of the United States, and up here, iced coffee is all the rage. You see people walking around with these ginormous cups filled with coffee. Most of the time, they add heavy amounts of cream and sugar, making it very candy-like. But it's loaded with ice, and you see people walking around to Dunkin' Donuts, and they have the clear cups that this is often served in, and then they stuff it in a styrofoam cup so that when they get in their car, or excuse me, I'm doing away with my regional accent. When they get into their car, and they put this in the cup holder, it doesn't sweat all over the cup holder. So typically iced coffee, which is different than a cold brewed coffee, they're going and they're taking a regular brewed coffee, brewed over heat, or with large amounts of hot water, as is typical, and then they let it cool down to room temperature before they chill it. Some places do it old-fashioned way. They add ice once it's at room temperature, and then throw it in a refrigerator to cool it down. Some places will just keep it at that room temperature and then pour it over ice for you, so that later you can add the sugar and cream. I typically don't enjoy it. I enjoy my coffee hot. It's just the way I've always had it. But I mean, some people really, really go out for this stuff. To them, it's a really nice treat on a warm day. In fact, some people like it so much they'll even drink it in the dead of winter. They cannot function without that 24 32 ounce iced coffee that they're just pounding like crazy. So it's a little bit about iced coffee and what drives them. Today, however, for me, my hot coffee that I'm drinking, got a really nice roast from Jason. It was sent to me from the Vashon Island Coffee Rotisserie in Washington. Got a sampler pack, and you can go onto Vashon Coffee Roasters website. And you can order these for people. It's a really simple, easy website to navigate. They have a lot of quality products. I've tried 3 of their coffees so far. It's really, really good. This is the Orca blend. It's a medium to dark roast coffee. It's got that smoky taste to it, with almost like a nutty after finish that you expect in like a medium to a dark roast coffee. And of course, it's got an orca on the front. Vashon Coffee Roasters, Vashon Island Coffee Roasters, seems like they're doing a lot of good stuff. They have a lot of great coffee. You can order it online. I'm enjoying the roast that I've gotten so far. Really, really good. And I'm probably going to order from them again. Like I said, this was sent to me, and everything on the website seems reasonable. So why not order from them? So good times, good stuff. And that's enough for the coffee. But let's get to our concept this morning. And concept being the fan angle. So sometimes, as a creator, you delve so deeply into something that you inspire your fans. And these are people who are more rabid for your property than in some cases than you are. Oh no. We have somebody on the Facebook feed who is saying iced coffee. Let me see if I can track down who that is. Oh, it's Joaquim Oliveira, my brother from another mother in Massachusetts. He's saying, I hate iced coffee. I'm sorry, brother. Yeah, well, it's coffee and concept, so I had to come. I can't just highlight the stuff I like. You gotta touch, gotta experiment. Maybe try some different. I'll tackle cold brew next time. So we'll see a little bit more of that. But sometimes you get a fan that really knows your stuff very, very well, really has absorbed the material, knows it inside and out, and just absolutely loves it, and then wants to create something. This is how we get fan fiction, fan art. You get all sorts of avenues where your fans can be creative and almost chase the dream that you're chasing themselves. Now, because of copyright and because of the way that we protect intellectual property in the United States, and I'm only talking about the United States because I'm not as familiar with copyright laws in other country. I have a basic understanding, but not so locked down that I can be considered an expert. But dealing with just how things work in the United States, you have to be careful with your intellectual property and what you allow people to benefit from. For example, somebody at like a comic book show or a comic book convention can sit down and, per request, draw something for you from, say, their favorite Marvel comic character, their what have you. As long as that item is not being mass produced and then sold without permission of like Marvel Comics, that's okay, because it's a work for hire, one-time creative endeavor. However, with authors, stories, things where you are still creating content for a particular intellectual property, and say somebody comes along and writes something in your universe and then wants to try and sell it, it's more than a one-time use. It's more than a create for hire. It's not legal to do that. However, if you look at the fan community over the course of, say, the last 20 years, you go on YouTube, there are scores of Star Wars related fan content. Some of them are amazing. The Darth Maul one shot that was done was phenomenal. There was a few years ago another fan that did like a Lost Jedi series, and these people are making it with their own money. In some cases it's being fan produced, such as with like Kickstarter, Patreon, all the usual crowdfunding measures. If you recently, I've been very excited because I'm a huge fan of Dan Abnett and his Warhammer 40K books. Some of the most iconic science fiction in the last decade, as far as imagery, story, just phenomenal stuff. If you've never read Dan Abnett, he's a fantastic human being, a lot of fun to talk to, and there's great stuff that he's doing with that Warhammer 40K universe. So the other day I was very excited because a fan, through things like Patreon and stuff like that, had been creating a series of Warhammer 40K shorts called Astartes. And this is about a group of space marines, and they go on a mission, and it's very well done. The cinematography is amazing. It's all 3D animation, but the way they cut scenes, the way he shows the protagonist versus antagonist, how part of the protagonists can become the antagonists. It's just amazingly done, and this was all fan driven. Nobody's looking to challenge the copyrights of Games Workshop, who's the owner of that intellectual property. And it was just very, very, very well done. So where is that balance? Where's the balance of allowing fan works to progress so that they show their love of the property without challenging copyright? And where's the other side where you're protecting your intellectual property? Well, the first thing to do is to know what your rights are in the first place as a creator. So you can always go online, go to the, and once again, this is United States copyright stuff. This has, like I said, I'm not as familiar with some of the copyright laws, and they're different slightly across, and I apologize, that's my cat calling out. They're not as prolific, or excuse me, I'm not as prolific or well caught up to the laws in other countries, because there are minor changes across the board, and some of them, you could get into the weeds and really drown in a sea of copyright law if you try to associate yourself with everything that's out there. But just based on the United States, you can go to the U.S. Library of Congress, look up all those copyright laws, what your rights are as a creator when you own the intellectual property, and then engage with your fans. If somebody wants to write a fan fiction, it's a good idea for you not to read it if you're the creator, because if you come out with a similar idea later on, that person can then challenge your right to use that idea because he said he used it first, if it was posted online with your blessing. So one of the things you can do is keep your distance, but not stifle the creativity of your fans, because in a lot of these cases, or the majority of these cases, the fans are just being very excited, and they just want to show love for something you've created in a way that helps them be creative. So the other side of that is knowing when to step in, knowing when to, Brian Mansur joining us on the Facebook group. He's saying he hadn't thought of that point. But the other side of that is follow what's going on and make sure that you have somebody who's familiar with your work, who can help you kind of look at these things, police them, in a creepy, oh, I'm the overlord way. And this is no way a challenge or challenge or assumption of rights over the overlord boss, Josh Hayes. So have somebody that can help you and look at some of these things and say, hey, this person's trying to sell something you're producing or based on something you're producing without your permission over here, and is making quite a good deal of money on it. Corvo says, have a good day. Hey, Corvo, good morning. But have somebody who can walk over to you and say, hey, look, so-and-so, this is a fan who's been to your site many times. He's posting these and he doesn't have your permission. Maybe you should step in and do something about that. You can give, at that point, cease and desist letters. You can get a lawyer involved. There's a lot of avenues open to people who own an intellectual property, who can control things. One of the most famous examples of this is, and it gets really, really weird, is if you look at some of the most popular fiction that has hit in the last decade or so, it stemmed from a fan angle that turned almost to litigation. Minor tweaks were made, and then now you have things like, for example, a X-Men fan fiction where romances were had and all sorts of craziness was going on, and it wasn't something that the creators were into, and said, no, this is way too much. You can't You need to take this down, because it was getting a lot of views and a lot. Ended up a story about sparkly vampires and werewolves all loving each other. And then to take that a step further, somebody came down the road later on and said, oh my God, I'd really like to do a sparkly vampire thing where they're into bondage. And this progressed, and litigation once again came in, and it was getting a lot of airtime. And finally the creators, this fan creator, said, well, fine, I won't make it about sparkly vampires who are into really enjoying their bodies. I'll make it 50 Shades of something. So you have to be careful to get that good balancing act, because if you create something that really resonates with people, they're going to want to be a part of it in many different ways. And one of those ways is for them to be as creative as you are. And in doing that, make sure that you strike that good balance of enticing that creativity, because you never know what you might find. You might find somebody who is as passionate as you are, that might be able to help you in some way. And that's fantastic. For those who don't know, I run the Galaxy's Edge podcast, and that came out of me being a really ardent fan. I really enjoyed that property. It resonated with me. And I respectfully and politely had a really great conversation with the creators and said, hey, I'd really like to promote this. I'm not looking for monetary compensation. I just really like talking about this. I enjoy podcasting and talking to different people. So if it's okay, I'd really like to push this out there. And now it's a thing that we do a couple of times a month. And having that creative balance where you entice your fans and keep them coming back for more, inspiring their creativity as well, can help you get that feedback loop where they're feeding off of you, you're feeding off of them. If you have a positive relationship, it's all good. And in those instances where you find somebody who is challenging your copyright or your ability to produce your work unhindered without somebody trying to benefit from what you're doing without putting in the requisite work, just make sure that whatever you do, should it become public, a great thing to run any business by is to live today so that you're proud tomorrow. So just like Patrick Swayze in Roadhouse, be polite. Have that firm hand that says, I'm sorry, but this is a challenge to my intellectual property. I cannot let it continue. I appreciate the work that you did, and it showed a lot of passion on your part, but I cannot allow this per United States copyright laws. Can we have a conversation about you removing it? And in the majority of cases, that's usually all that has to happen. And then after that, the website, where I believe it's libraryofcongress.gov, they have resources for people who are trying to protect their intellectual property. So a lot to unpack there. It was a big conversation. We started off crazy with iced coffee. We talked about Vashon Island coffee roasters, and then we got into the weeds about a balancing act, about fan angle, keeping your fans happy while making sure you're protecting your intellectual property. I really appreciate everybody coming out this morning. We try to keep these short. A couple of people were very gracious and sent me emails to ask if we would do longer form shows. I really like these short because of I don't want my coffee to get cold. Just keep in mind that on Keystroke Medium, Monday is live with Josh, Scott, and Chuck. Obviously, Coffee and Concepts, Tuesday mornings at 7:30 a.m. Eastern, where we talk coffee and coffee. Storytelling with Josh Caillou, which is long-form storytelling that will periodically be posted to YouTube. And as that has some production values involved, there's no set schedule, but when they appear, definitely check them out because of very interesting conversations. The Writer's Journey on Thursday with Lauren and Kayleen, covering topics for aspiring authors and getting subject matter experts to talk about their experiences with those things. Have a great morning, a great day, or a great evening, and get yourself into some reading, writing, and a little bit more here on Keystroke Medium. Thank you.